Hi, it's John Cunningham from Cunninghams with this year's end of financial year wrap for 2022. We've been servicing the Northern Beaches real estate for the last 32 years, from Manly to Palm Beach and encompassing the forest area. And every year has its nuances, every year has its differences. So let's have a deep dive into what happened in the last 12 months. So let's look at the total volume of sales of that financial year. Over $1 billion, in fact $1.08 billion transacted. That's 80% up on 21. So sales, 474, up just 2 on the total of 21, which was 472. Interesting numbers. So again, average price of $2,276,000, also up 18% on the previous year. So let's look at how this has unfolded. The true growth of the boom really started back in May 19. We actually had an average sale price back then of $1,495,000. And then through to the peak in October 21 at $2,490,000, we saw a total growth of 40%. Looking back, we can see that this volume of sales and these increases highlighted the fact that throughout the calendar year of 21, we actually saw the average sale price increase further, and also it made a massive impact on the growth of that marketplace. So we can look at that peak sales number in 2021, 510 sales transacted in that time. We've seen those volumes drop. So let's look at the shift in the past 12 months. Look at these numbers clearly. Average price in June 21, $2,200,000. The average price in October 21, $2,490,000. So that's up 12% in that short period of time. Now let's look at the next 6 months. Average in June 22, we're down back where we were in June 21, $2,190,000, so a minus 12% shift. Now for us, that's an interesting number. When we look at that compared to the average Northern Beaches shift, which is about 15% during that time. So effectively, all those capital gains from the past 12 months have adjusted back to June 21 levels. Now we expected this would happen. This is normally what happens after a boom. But with the huge boom that we've had, 40% over 2 years, we had to make that shift back. So we're now back to what we consider normal levels. So now let's look at where buyers are coming from. Really important to understand this because this tells us what happens on the Northern Beaches. 66% of our buyers are actually local residents who live currently on the Northern Beaches. Out of area buyers make up 34%. And that number's interesting because it's shifted up and down. It's right through the pandemic, that actually increased to nearly 38% of buyers coming from out of area because of the beautiful attractiveness of our area. It's now stabilised back to probably where it normally is, around that 65-35% area. Now, also, where are buyers actually sourcing the properties from? Very interesting shift in this space because we've seen that it's moved from around 65% from the major portals down to 55%. The interesting thing for us, and probably the exciting thing for us, is that 45% of those buyers, of the 100%, are actually coming from Cunningham's buyer find strategies. Very interesting to see that shift where we're putting energy and effort into making sure our buyers are recorded, looked after, nurtured, engaged and activated on properties much quicker through our on the quiet strategy. So it's working brilliantly. Now also let's look at what the makeup of buyers is. 78% currently are owner occupiers, with a large proportion of those, or an increasing proportion I should say, being first home buyers. That's up, and that's an important number. But on the flip side, the investors are down. Across the last 12 months, 22% of our buyers were investors. Interestingly enough, the last quarter, that's jumped to 25%, a good sign, telling us that investors are coming back in the market. They see an opportunity at the bottom of the market where we've hit the peaks, we've come back down, and they're seeing opportunity to come in right now. So again, for any people looking at the marketplace, see what the investors are doing. It's a great sign. So I think it's now time to shift to property management. Let's look at what's happening in that space because it's very interesting. We've leased 527 properties. That's down 4% on the previous year, but there's a lot of reasons for that. The COVID lockdown impacts where people tended to stay put. They didn't move as frequently as they normally did. There are less investors putting new properties into the marketplace. And so buying through COVID times has been an interesting space, as has renting. Now, average rents is another number. Houses are up. They're in short supply. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We do have an abundance of apartments in the rental space, but those rents have stayed stable. But we're about to see that change. We're about to see a rental crisis looming because there's going to be less stock available. And that's happening for a number of reasons, which I'll explain in our summary. But right now, watch this space, because as the investors start to move, we hope that there will be more stock available and people will start moving again, and that puts upward pressure on rents. So now it's time for a summary and a few predictions I'll throw in there. Crystal balls are interesting things, but right now we've got some clear indications that might give some clarity around that. So, interest rates are relatively still low. I know there's going to be further increases, but despite that, when you look at the scheme of things over the last 10 years, even the last 20 years, we have hit obviously the lowest interest rates that we've ever seen. Now we're seeing probably that moving back to what would be a more realistic level. Yes, there's going to be some pain in the interim, but it's a reality and it won't have a massive impact on the marketplace for the following reasons. Buyer activity is slowly increasing. That tells us that people are slowly increasing confidence in buying again. Investor activity is increasing as a result of that, and that's one of the indicators that we said earlier that really tells us about a market bottoming out. Available stock is stable and what has not gone through the roof, it's not dropping off. So stability again is a core reason why it's a great time to get back into the marketplace. Now the supply ratios across the macro market, let's say the whole Sydney market, is a problem. We are heading into an absolute shortage of supply into the marketplace compared to the demand. The types of property that have been offered aren't necessarily what's required. We have seen stamp duty changes taking place that may also impact that positively, and migration is starting to increase as well. Once the COVID restrictions are lifting across the world, Australia is going to be an absolute mecca for migration. So watch that space. That is definitely going to have an impact on the marketplace. Unemployment is low and stable. And again, that normally hasn't been the case when we've seen interest rate rises. So when you look at that, one of the number one indicators. And for the Northern Beaches, it's still in high demand, highly desired location that I don't think will ever change. So let's look at the summary. The boom's busted. We know that, there's no doubt about it. The media's a bit behind where it's adjusted to, but as we've explained in the numbers, you can see what's actually happened. It's adjusted. And now as a result of that, we should go into a period of stability for the next few years. Well, that's how I see the marketplace. Thanks for tuning in for our financial year end of year wrap, and look forward to talking to you soon.